It was cold, I was freezing, I'd had too much booze. So I thought I would pack up my cow for the night. She was packed to the gills with rare goods I had saved. Here's a big haul of ox for my lady. My comms panel opened, a voice said, "Ha ha, now give me 10 tons of your loot." I was stubborn and drunk and would not give this punk not 1 penny, so I blew it all. My lady was hoping for riches that night. When a rebuy, I was down on my knees. But she just walked away from that empty ship bay. She said, "You're not the man that I need." Oh, I turned to the dark side, I hardened my heart. Oh, yes, a mean pirate I'd be. I flew out of that station and into the sun. Yes, I knew I had found what I'd be. I was flying my Cobra right out of Cremain with a hole full of Lave and brandy. I was swinging so deeply from my hidden mug, with the red smell of onion head round me. Maybe I'll find a girl and forgot her one night, or put up with my pirating ways. But until then I'll drink from this old hidden mug, and I hope that I'll meet her one day. One day, Christmas Day, oh, I'll win back your heart with my gold and my charms. Oh, one day, Christmas Day, but until then I'll keep on my pirating ways. Well, hey. So I cooled down my Cobra and silent ran home. Sold all of my Lave and brandy, and some pink fast neck gin just to give me a grin, and a puff of that onion head gladly. Maybe I'll find a girl and forget her one day, or put up with my pirating ways. But until then I'll drink from this old hidden mug, and I hope that I'll meet her one day. One day, Christmas Day, oh, I'll win back your heart with my gold and my charms. Oh, one day, Christmas Day, but until then I'll keep on my pirating ways. Oh, one day, Christmas Day, oh, I'll win back your heart with my gold and my art. Oh, one day, Christmas Day, but until then I'll keep on with my pirating ways.
Galnet News Digest, 11th of March, 3307. We read the news so you don't have to.
In this week's news, why Lave Station?
An abrupt ending.
A very quick set of answers.
SRVs in space. Why Lave Station? In the wake of the bombing of 9 starports today, authorities are trying to work out what went wrong. How could known terrorists get through the permit locks on all 3 capital systems, Aknar, Alioth and Sol? How could these terrorists still be able to place enzyme bombs in starports that are guarded day and night? And why, among the list of high-value targets, capitals of many of the major powers, did the terrorists think Lave Station a worthwhile target? Is it because it's the historic jumping-off point for generations of Commander Jamesons? Is it because of the famous Lavian brandy? Or is it because the terrorists want to stop commanders unlocking Didi Vartaman, the shield-boosting engineer of Leasty?
The NMLA terrorist spokesperson, Theta 7, said that bombing the stations was a signal for the people to rise up and take the power from the Federation, from the Empire, and from the Alliance, to cast out the old governments and to take power into the hands of the people. Do they mean that we should be doing that to the Lave radio network too? Given the slightly chaotic way the Orange Sidewinder crew has been handling the crisis, perhaps they have a point.
But the blast seems to have had the opposite effect. Commanders are coming together to rescue the inhabitants of the station, and special search parties have been sent out to find the Orange Sidewinder crew. No matter how awful the show, Lave Radio holds a special place in the hearts of commanders everywhere. An abrupt ending. Following the terrorist bombings, the Galactic Summit has been called off, and the politicians, leaders and dignitaries have all scuttled off back home to safety.
The Sirius Treaty, which was supposed to bring the powers together to confront the Thargoid threat, remains unsigned. The Spirit of Laelapse lies abandoned, awaiting redeployment next week. The ship sale continues, with Gutamaya, Lakon and Core Dynamics ships all 10% off for another week, and the temporary Sirius permit remains active for a little longer. But there's a sense of an opportunity missed, of a galaxy not noticeably better after 2 weeks of negotiations.
Perhaps only Archon Delane comes out as a winner, at least partly promoted to recognition, sitting round the table with respectable, if not necessarily respected, politicians. Perhaps someday we'll have Galactic Summit 2, the rematch. But until then, Sirius can get back to its normal business, forcing independent systems to buy its products at gunpoint.
A very quick set of answers. What about that Odyssey heist last week then? That was something worth watching, wasn't it? We have some clarifications about what it all means. What are all those red barrels?
Red barrels go bang.
How did the commanders manage to do so well?
They died a lot, and footage was spliced together to make it look like they knew what they were doing.
Do planetary rings cast shadows on the ground?
No.
Are there any zero-G environments we can walk about in?
No.
Where can you walk about?
Anywhere you can land.
Where can you change your loadout?
In your ship or SRV.
Can you drop or lose weapons?
No, not unless you die.
Which buildings can you enter?
All of them.
Can you kill other commanders when you're on foot?
Yes.
Can you kill people with the arc cutter?
No. Dismemberment is strictly prohibited.
Can you conduct a heist on your own?
Yes, but it's much harder.
Can you join big battles?
Frontline solutions are the way.
How does physical multicrew work?
You're not a hologram, so you need to be in the same place, wing up, and then you can go into your shipmate's ship, unless they refuse you boarding permission.
Can I drive a wingmate's SRV?
Yes. SRVs in space. Commander Brono is claiming an unusual first this week. While visiting the hot potato system Striu EOP ZP-NC23-0, and with the assistance of other members of the expedition, they launched their SRV from tiny potato planet A1, which is only 8 light seconds from the star, and which orbits almost as fast as Mitran Hollow, were gently nudged by their fellow pilots onto a landing pad on the deck of a fleet carrier. Unfortunately, docking permission wasn't given, and the SRV was presumably blown up by the fleet carrier. For some reason, no one has yet attempted to take an SRV to a starport or fleet carrier and then return it safely to the planet, or to take a deployed SRV from one planet and land it safely on a different planet, which would make recalling one's ship interesting. There is so much science still to do.
And that's this week's Galnet News.
Galnet News. We read the news so you don't have to.
The Lave Radio Project was our last best hope for news. A self-contained podcast 2 hours long, located in neutral territory. A place of nonsense and innuendo for forum dads, community members and developers. A shining beacon in space, all alone on a Tuesday night. It was the dawn of the 3rd chapter of Elite. The year's space legs came upon us all. This is the story of the last of the Lavian stations. The year is 3307. The name of the place? Lave Radio.
Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to episode 333 of Lave Radio, the show that talks about the universe of Elite and the fantastic community that surrounds it. I'm your host, Commander Sovereign, because Phoenix to Fire is currently being flagellated by his partner for having the temerity to speak after 10:30 at night. Let your thoughts go out to him, listeners. It really is very tragic. He is at this very moment being whipped to within an inch of his life for daring to disturb the marital peace. So late in the evening.
Loving every minute of it, isn't he, Steve? He's really enjoying himself.
He's absolutely having a whale of a time, yeah. Joining me this evening in the Orange Sidewinder Bar, we have the man who will utter a single solitary innuendo and then do his absolute level best to say absolutely nothing for the rest of the evening. It's Ben Moss Woodward, a.k.a. Commander Edelweiss.
Well, apparently I'm not allowed to talk about having a helicopter dick.
Good. Also joining me, we have the man who can destroy an SRV at 12 kilometers with nothing but coarse language. It's Commander Shan.
I'm sorry, Steve. I very, very rarely swear or utter expletives or crude in any way.
And the SRVs of the bubble utter a sigh of relief. And we also have the adult in the room. It is the lovely WK Jez off of System Chat. Hello.
Hello, it's great to be here, though I don't usually frequent bars often, so I feel I'm in a very safe one?
No, that's incorrect. This is a very unsalubrious bar, and you should feel uncomfortable.
I'll work on it.
If you wish, you can join Ben live. He is currently shuttling survivors out of Lave Station. Ben, what are you flying? What are you doing? Tell us about it.
I'm currently actually just lurking outside while I'm doing chatty things because landing and getting buffeted around in a beluga is hard enough without trying to do a radio show as well.
Lovely.
But when I'm not talking and not making innuendos, I'll be trying to fly my beluga in and out of that big slot.
Great. So if you want to go and see Ben plunge his beluga repeatedly in and out of that tight slot, then head over to Lave. Right. Let's kick off with Jez. Jez, actually, I ought to just quickly big up your show. System Chat is you can find at www.systemchat.live. It is hosted by Jez and Boss Lady B. I was on it a week ago, something like that, and it was really fun, a lovely experience. And those guys are terribly nice hosts and cover all things content creation in the world of Space Sims. So, Jez, how have you been for the last week, and what have you been up to?
I've been very well, thank you for asking, and thanks for the kind words. I've been working quite a lot behind the scenes because we had a tremendous error in the audio file last week, so I've been trying to redo all of my system. But,
was I the enormous error?
Yes, and I'm glad I was asked to come on tonight so that I could, make you feel uncomfortable about it live on air.
Yeah, fair enough. Have you been getting involved in the station rescues?
I have, because like our good friend Ben here, we both share a love for belugas. Though his handling of the mail slot so far seems more effortless than my own.
Wow, I have never heard such praise. Have you ever crossed belugas with Ben? Have you ever had a beluga off?
No, unfortunately, our people, our end, did a risk assessment, and we realised that Ben's philosophy on safety was always optional, and they wouldn't cover the insurance. It just wouldn't happen.
I very nearly just got blown off the pad.
Oh, that's a shame. Try better next time. Ben, how has your week been?
My week's been a mixture of awesome and more awesome. I'm trying to think. Yeah, just quite a few good things have happened. I got some money off a Logitech keyboard to replace my broken one, and that's come through fairly quickly. It took about 3 or 4 days instead of the 2 weeks that they were suggesting, so yay. I've also managed to get rid of my broken one by saying, this one's broken, come and get it. So that's more yay. And
people disparage dealing with massive companies, but I tell you what, dealing with massive tech companies is actually really brilliant sometimes. Like whenever I've had a problem with my Oculus Rift, I just send it back and they send me a new one. Like it's just so easy. Do you know what I mean? Like massive Logitech are the same. Whenever I've had any problem with a peripheral, they just deal with it instantly. It's
Logitech have been brilliant. Thrustmaster can suck on a helicopter.
I think they're famously shit, aren't they, Thrustmaster?
Thrustmaster, I cannot believe how bad Thrustmaster have been. I want to love their products. I love the Thrustmaster Hot Ass X, which I used for many years, and it was great. I then very happily got the T16000, and I've had 3 or 4 of them break on me, all under warranty, thankfully. But it's like
that's shockingly bad.
Yeah, you would not expect you would not. So basically, when it broke the last time, it was just like, okay, sorry guys, but I am not. And thankfully it was under Amazon. I got it under Amazon, so Amazon basically said, Ben, take your money back.
Yeah. What is the warranty period, out of interest?
It's I think it's 2-year warranty. I think it is.
Gosh, that's ambitious. Selling joysticks to elite dangerous players with 2-year warranties is on the optimistic side, isn't it?
But you wouldn't expect your joystick to start breaking with the same breakage, and it's a very common issue with that joystick as well.
Yeah,
I'm far from the first person to have it, and touch wood, I took, I think it was Mac's recommendation, and got the VKB Gladiator Next to replace that one that I got my money back for. And touch wood, that one's lovely.
Good.
But obviously, I've not had it for 2 years yet. So hey,
Does that have a 2-year warranty as well?
I can't actually remember. I honestly can't remember. All I know at the moment is because of Brexit, they're basically saying, "Dear people in Britain, sucks to be you."
Excellent. All the thrills and spills of consumer electronics. Shan, how has your week been?
It's been pretty good. In game, I have been looking to restock my supply of enzyme bombs. I sold out of them a couple of weeks ago. I had about 100 enzyme bombs a couple of weeks ago, and they all sold out. So
And there was a run on them, was there?
There was, yes.
Yeah, interesting.
So I've been trying to replace them in game. I did actually rescue some people from Lave Station, but then I found out if you can jettison them, and I would like to say that one of them may or may not have been Colin. So
it's a definitive statement you can say about every human being in the bubble, really, isn't it? Every single human may or may not be Colin.
Yes, Schrodinger's Colin. Yeah, so I've been, and then apparently they finding their way to meet Etienne Dawn. So I'm sure they are nice and happy out in Colonia and safe from all blowing up stations now.
The ethics of that really depend on whether it is better to die burning in a gently depressurizing on fire station, or being made into suspicious sausages in Etienne Dawn's Colonia sausage factory.
Well, not my problem. So that was it. Looking for a new supply of enzyme bombs, and did a couple of rescues of passengers to. But the trouble is with the passenger rescues, they don't actually pay very well, not per passenger. And I've had more modular terminals than I know what to do with. So it's
you don't do it for the fuzzy feels, then, Shan?
No, of course not.
No. Have you ever experienced a fuzzy feel, Shan?
With Mrs. Shan, yes.
Moving on. Well, my week has been...
Hang on, wait. And in real life, I have been test driving cars for Mrs. Shan's second EV. So I've been enjoying test driving cars today.
Do you mean she needs two? Presumably, EV is electric vehicle.
Well, we've got the Tesla, and we want a second car. You see, because the eldest Mini Shan is off to join the RAF or complete his officer training soon, so he will be taking his car with him, which leaves us with a requirement for a second car. You see,
is he the bugalier who rides horses?
No,
or are they? Oh God, I lose track of all of your. Of your
two children,
your many patriotic children scampering around the country.
No, the youngest Mini Shan is learning to drive tanks this week.
Right.
So he's learning to drive. I think it's scimitars. He's learning to drive in, and he has a driving test for a tank on Thursday.
Nice. Good luck to Mini Shan for his tank test.
Well, I'm sure it's quite easy because you won't really notice if you hit anything or not, I suppose, with them. So.
Yeah, that's true, and fingers crossed the instructor wouldn't either. I can imagine test scenarios along the lines of that. That felt like quite a squishy obstacle. Was that a passenger? Was that a pedestrian you just ran over? No, definitely not. That was just the curb. I imagine that it's probably quite easy to bluff that sort of thing in a tank.
Yeah, well, apparently he's really enjoying himself in it. So, of course, when he says it's a little tank, I have images of Lieutenant Gruber from Lave in his little tank.
Lovely.
Yeah, so that's been my week. So if you know anyone who's selling enzyme bombs, let me know because I need a restock.
Good stuff. Well, I've been diligently evacuating Lave Station, which was fun. I did a whole trip, and I really, really love those stations. I think the music and the voice acting and the the animations and everything. It's just really good, really, really dramatic. Apart from that, I've been busily. I've been continuing with my little unofficial Lave Radio listener / host Total War Warhammer Club. We are now up to 4 people and merrily playing co-op campaigns together 3 or 4 times a week, which is good fun. And we've also been, this is probably one for the community section, but we've also been gearing up for the return of the print edition of Sagittarius Eye, which I'll talk a little bit more about later. So lots of exciting things. Anyway, let's talk about development news. What have the devs said this week? On Thursday, we had a stream in which the devs Zach and Bruce rescued some people from burning stations, like the rest of us have been doing. Who watched this?
I watched this.
Can you tell us about it, Ben? Because I didn't.
That surprises me a humongous amount. But sarcasm aside, it was a stream about Bruce and them rescuing people from the burning stations.
How many did they rescue?
Oh, probably about 5. But I learned something that I never knew.
What was that?
You know when you're picking and choosing your missions, and you know how when we finalize a mission, you can say, I want that one, that reward, or that reward nowadays.
Yeah.
Well, I never realised that you could go off and have your rewards in your mission picking screen to show you the materials you would get, or the money you would get, or a reputation or influence things and so on. I never knew that.
Interesting.
So of course, I'm not doing this for credits. I'm doing it for mats.
So Ben, they rescued 5 people.
Yes.
So that makes me a better Thunderbird than them.
And me.
Not exactly raising the bar very high, but yes, it does.
Zach is the new CM, isn't he?
Yeah.
Nice. The filtering is. I love UI stuff like that. I feel like Elite could do with quite a lot of a lot more filters. And that
I was delighted when I learned that. I was like, "Oh my god, that's so good!"
It's very useful, but it does remind me of playing Spreadsheet Elite. Sort by materials, sort by this, and it's very spreadsheet-like, isn't it?
Yeah, but that's useful.
It's handy.
Did you say you're saving up modular terminals, Ben?
I don't think I did.
I thought you mentioned modular terminals.
No, I said I was fed up with modular terminals as rewards. I wanted something different, so that's why I was selling the passengers, because I didn't want,
You didn't want the passengers.
No, well, don't insult me by trying to give you modular terminals. Give me something tangible that I can actually use. I mean, I'm saving your life here. Give me something workable. Don't try and fob me off with modular terminals.
Currency's not been terrible. Even not going for money, I'm walking out of there with a couple of million per loop.
Couple of million? You're cheap, Ben. You're a cheap bait.
Cheap.
He does it for the feels.
Yeah. Yeah, I does it for the fuzzies.
And have you been playing the other game, Ben? Have you been cheating on Elite?
I'm well. We know I'm a complete whore and I play everything. Actually, I'm embarrassed to say I even loaded up Fortnite today.
Nice.
Exactly.
Were you cruising the lobbies hoping to find children's birthday parties to join?
My son started playing Fortnite, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to install that again, aren't I? As I died on the inside.
That's a really good excuse, Ben.
Yeah, fresh meat, I imagine. All those friends of his.
Yes.
But you can't wait. Lovely stuff. And have you been playing any RimWorld this week?
I have been playing some RimWorld, yes.
Lovely.
Yeah, my most recent escapades in that was I took my poor citizens off to a burning city that is basically getting blown up. But if I go around the burning city, then I can also dodge the laser beams of death, iron cannons and stuff like that. Then I can walk out of there with fat loot.
Nice.
I've just had a thought. We have now been talking about our week for the last nearly 20 minutes, and poor Colin, he hates us when we take a really long time to talk about what we're doing for the week and
Well,
ramble on.
we actually did move on to development news, but then
Yeah, but now we've gone back. Yeah, you see. So sorry, Colin.
One step
you'll have.
forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah, I'm sure, Colin, you'll love to spank Ben later for dragging the show off track. So I'm sure you'll be, after being spanked by Mrs. Colin, you can then spank Ben. I think that's.
Well,
Pass it
he'll
on,
learn all the techniques.
So you're saying Colin gets his spanking techniques from Mrs. Colin?
Well, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
I don't know.
It makes more sense than any alternatives that I can currently think of at the moment.
We'll have to ask him when he comes back. But no, you're right. I shouldn't go on to asking you what other games you've been playing, because I should have done that earlier. Let's carry on with the development news. So Tuesday's stream announced some new cosmetics and things for Hollow Me when Odyssey launches. Do we know what these might be? Have they said anything about what these cosmetics and Hollow Me things might look like?
Not in a public way that I'm aware of, no. It's just been a case of, I think there was paraphrasing, but it's like, well, yeah, you're going to be able to get out and walk around and things like that. It would make a lot of sense if you could actually update what your avatar looks like.
Yeah.
Probably,
go on.
Probably more GIMP suits.
Which is the MMO that has the most powerful free cosmetic you can get? The most powerful one in the base game is a ghillie suit.
Hello.
Is it? I think it might be. I think it might be Black Desert Online. Apparently, the most powerful player outfit the most powerful bit of gear that you don't buy with real world cash is something that's explicitly designed to make you look like an idiot.
No idea.
I don't know, but it's a little bit. Yeah, we'll have to see what they look like. But seeing as your avatar is going to look exactly the same as all the other avatars, apart from the face, I'm not sure how unique they will be, because part of the not fun, but part of the whole being able to walk around and things outside of a ship and in third person is being able to customize the looks of your avatar, both height and width and all stuff like that, to make it look unique. But now we'll just have everyone being the same height and the same width, and if they're wearing a suit with a helmet on, they'll look exactly the same as everyone else. So,
well, unless the cosmetic option's quite creative.
yeah, but if you can buy them with arcs, then they're not really unique, are they? You just pay your money and you look the same.
Oh yeah, but we can, even now with our current stuff, you can customize all your clothing and things like that. I've not seen many people, for example, who are wearing. I've not seen many people's avatars wearing the same stuff that I'm wearing.
Well, the colours are often different, but we only have a few outfits to choose from. I don't think the fact that they're purchasable with arcs means that they're necessarily going to be more limited than they would be if they were available.
If anything, I'd say it'd be more choice, because you've got to make those arcs.
Yeah, personally, I would really like to see capes and things. I'd really like to see
no capes.
Lando Calrissian style capes and
capes and jetpacks don't mix. Look at Boba Fett. It's just a bad idea.
No, you can put it underneath. It'll be fine.
It's a jetpack. Wouldn't that you become a fireball shooting in the sky like a firework?
Well, maybe not like a Superman cape, man. Then maybe just like something rakishly thrown over a shoulder. Yeah, I'm trying to think of sort of the way something that you could use to disguise yourself if you wanted, and that could be like a half.
You mean a hoodie?
No, not a hoodie. Ben, what would you like to see out of
a shell suit from the 90s or something?
Oh, God.
Yeah. I would definitely buy and wear that. That would go really well with Commander Sovereign's epic moustache.
So would you be like Vicky Pollard then?
I'd probably be more like the loads of money bloke off of the Fast Show. if I had a choice. Ben, what do you want to see out of the cosmetics for Odyssey?
I mean, if I'm going to go for any kind of attire, it's gonna, I'm gonna have to be a brown coat.
Oh yeah, very nice.
Since he's not here, I think we should design an outfit for Colin to wear.
Pink and cyan and hot pink and white shell suit.
What about a codpiece? Would you give him a codpiece?
Inverted.
Oh, what? That's horrible.
I've
You're a
never worn a
monster.
fish before.
Oh, maybe Colin is wearing a fish. We don't know at the moment. But so you have an inverted codpiece for him.
I think so. Yeah.
I think he should have a red suit with like a silver tummy in the shape of a square,
Oh, you would.
and like a little aerial coming out the top of that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty apt, actually. That sounds about ideal. WK Jez, do you want me to keep enunciating those letters, or do you just like being called Jez, or should I call you something completely different, or what?
I mean, Jez will work just fine. There's no point spending too many syllables on me at this stage.
Yeah,
Yes,
W is a tricky one, though, because it's got
Yes, we've only got 1,500 syllables in the bank, so we just have to be very careful.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to, I've got to be conscientious of your budget and everything, and don't waste it on little old me. But I think it's only right that if we get some of those Fitbits, because we're going to be walking for the first time ever, and because none of us have ever actually walked before, we're all going to look like we're completely on the piss, and the Fitbits will be able to just show us how shamefully bad we are at walking.
So you want Colin to have Fitbits?
And
we'll be like people who have been in comas for years when their muscles are all atrophied.
Yes, and I mean the station controllers, they won't know what's going on. They'll just see us all walking through the door, and they think, well, the mouse lot's the last of our concerns right now, to be honest.
Speaking of Fitbits, the game actually does have a distance tracker for the SRV. You can see how far you've travelled. There's no reason that they wouldn't implement that for on foot as well.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, the idea of the whole coming through the station for the first time is basically we've all been doing that the past year. My first time out after the last lockdown, I was like walking up the street. I was like, "What the hell is this?"
So
I've not done this for months.
Do you imagine the scene like when you'll get out of the chairs in Wall-E?
Yes.
For me, it's like the end of the Truman Show, where he's sort of feeling his way along the fake wall. That's me going outside the house. I'm like, why is there no ceiling? I don't understand.
Actually, hearing the thing about station commander thing, Ben, remind us of your Lave station job title.
That would be the health and safety advisor or something like that, I believe.
So, can you please explain how come Lave station is now on fire?
I believe it.
Lave Station's health and safety manager has done an appalling job. It doesn't look very healthy or safe, Ben, I'll be honest.
Yeah, alien weapons might have been involved.
Might. So basically, when can we expect your resignation, Ben? Because clearly,
If I can get off the show right now, you can have it. If I can bail, I'm one for this.
That's what you were going to do any minute now, anyway, Ben. You were about to embark on your 2 hours of ritual silence on a Thursday evening.
Yeah, but it's Tuesday tonight.
Sorry,
it's Tuesday tonight, not Thursday.
Actually, I think Ben, you need to come on my health and safety course.
I wonder what you were going to say then.
The one I'm running. No, I'm very good at health and safety, so therefore I think Ben should attend my health and safety course.
To be fair, I've got no idea how I wound up with the health and safety head of health and safety or whatever it is.
Neither do we. I am. Although I'm quivering at anticipation of attending Shan's health and safety course, shall we touch on the news from the investor report, which was paywalled?
The one we're not supposed to talk about.
Are we not supposed to talk about it?
No, part of it was paywalled. Part of it was available for everyone to look at. Part of it's paid. So
an investor report, which has since been removed from Reddit, was compiled. Was it compiled by Frontier or by Frontier's brokers?
By the brokers of Frontier.
Yeah, and it went into a little bit of detail about how Frontier view and categorize their players for their games, and it reported that it gave more detail on the player base of Elite Dangerous than anything we've seen so far. It said that
It's how Frontier categorize their players, or how that investor group categorizes Elite's community.
I wouldn't have thought that a broker. Would...
And Stuart's saying it hasn't been removed from Reddit, so I don't know why Colin said it has.
Cool.
And Stuart's the guy who wrote it.
There you go. So they split the players into four categories. Epic, meaning players who got the game free on Epic, rather than players being unusually broad and dramatic scope. Active, as in players who log in and play at least once a month. New, meaning not players who didn't get the game free on the Epic giveaway but have nevertheless bought it recently. And inactive/lapsed, which is presumably people who haven't logged in for a month. But somebody can correct me on that.
That's a bit disappointing. Sorry, Sue.
Go on.
I thought when it said ask for Epic, it actually meant Epic players.
Yeah, I thought that as well. I was thinking, God, I'm glad they've got a category for me. Yeah.
Rather than they just could read the news on a website and get it through Epic Game. I mean, I wanted Epic players. You're an Epic player. You're worthy of it. But now,
yeah, you get your own theme tune.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I was hoping for that. Yeah, and maybe that's what they did mean. Who knows? It would be a small and illustrious span.
Actually, you do have your own theme tune.
I do,
so
yeah.
You are an Epic player.
It's true. Yes, I got my own theme tune. One of the rare few. But anyway, the big news was that according to this classification, Elite Dangerous has no fewer than 500,000 active players. Now, I have done a little bit of reading around MMOs, and I gather this is actually quite rare for an MMO in its maturity, so to speak. Shan, you are our resident person who plays other MMOs, at least one. Can you give us any context around this 500,000 number?
Well, it's a pretty solid number, although traditionally MMO games are notoriously reticent to talk about how many players they've got active.
That's because the number is normally low, though, isn't it?
Well, no, it depends on how they measure it, because some MMOs will talk about concurrent players, so how many players are logged on at any one time. Some of them talk about players who, as this has, log in every month. And then others just talk about subscribers. So, it's a solid number, 500 players active a month, 500k, sorry. That's pretty solid, to be fair. But it depends on, do they just log in and log out again? I mean, do they see the store alert and then thinking, I'll check and see if I've got that skin, and then log out? Or are they an active participant in the game? So I don't know how that's measured, but with any measure, a game of this age, that's pretty solid.
I think what I was more impressed at is the things I've read in the past is work to figure out how many active players are done on, for example, Elder Scrolls Online, Final Fantasy XIV. What's the other one? Not World of Warcraft. Can't really think of it right now. Black Desert Online, for example. Active players who log in and play at least for a little bit once a month, is normally in the low hundreds of thousands. So for a game that is as toothsome and arguably sort of specialized as Elite, which is essentially a flight simulator, that seems an extraordinarily large number. I was amazed to see that, considering that something like Elder Scrolls Online, which is based on a wildly popular IP, it's very easy to get into. It's got very sort of, its gameplay has very broad appeal. I'm pretty sure that has fewer than 500,000 active players monthly, which means that we are possibly living through the glory days of Elite Dangerous right now. I don't think it's ever been. I'm pretty sure it's never been that healthy in the past. It struck me as an extraordinarily large number.
Well, we can't say that because this is the first number we've seen.
I doubt it's been bigger.
I do have to say, from a streamer perspective, it's been quite unique because average viewership for a lot of the regular streamers has been up. And I know that we've got the alpha coming over the horizon here soon, but it's quite uncharacteristic for those numbers to go up on their own until something new has engaged. So I can quite believe that there's definitely an uptick in players as well.
It's remarkable that it's without counting Epic as well. So Stuart GT's just given us a little bit more context. He said that EVE Online gets 300,000 monthly active players. World of Warcraft, which is obviously still the titan of the industry, gets 4 million. So against that context, I still think that's pretty impressive, really. 500,000 to be 60% more than EVE is pretty amazing.
So is that PC players, or is that including console players as well?
I don't think it was broken down like that in this report. Does anybody know if that's right?
Well, that would be a lovely, lovely bit of information to have, all things considered, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I have anecdotally whenever Frontier have said anything on the matter, they've always said that they've always indicated that console represent a really small percentage of players, and sort of knowledge of the community. I mean, that might be the community in inverted commas might be a self-selected group of particularly engaged PC nerds, which. And console players might just be less visible in the community, but actually quite numerous. But I've always got the impression that there are many fewer console players than PC players. Ben,
the other thing this is maybe a wee bit harsh to think, but it's not actually in Frontier's interests for us to play their game. If we play their game, then we're costing them money and servers and things like that. And unless we're actively buying arcs and skins, then we've paid our money, and we're now just costing Frontier money every single time we log in instead.
Yeah.
So actually, if you want to be nice to Frontier, buy arcs, buy the game, but don't play it.
Yeah. There we go, listeners. There's some advice for you. Listen to Lave Radio, talk about Elite Dangerous, buy things for it, just don't play it.
I mean, I think the arcs have been doing well in the last year, because I remember that Mr. Braben was on Sky on a business segment, a Sky News, kind of early into lockdown, and he was saying that the in-game purchases have actually kind of gone up quite considerably since people have been playing. So I wonder if it kind of offsets what you were saying there, Ben.
Sorry, I was reading something else. If you're talking to me, sorry.
I think player numbers. I think active players are a proxy for what's the word? Consumer, like cosmetics sold. I think probably the reason that Frontier view active players as a positive metric is because it's a proxy for how many cosmetics they're likely to sell. Because you buy more cosmetics the more you play. But yeah, I completely see that. A friend of mine who is a game developer told me that some studios actually make like the lion's share of their profits from selling not just cosmetics, but also in-game currency. If they have a game that sells in-game currency, for real money, some studios absolutely make their entire like a lot of their turnover and most of their profit from that. Elite is not at that level, but I can completely see that when everybody had lots more time on their hands, suddenly cosmetic sales leapt up.
I think I remember seeing David Braben on Sky News being interviewed, and I remember thinking, "Oh, Piers Morgan could do with interviewing him. That would be really fun."
Was he wearing a nice jumper?
Piers Morgan, got no idea.
It's David Braben's jumpers that me, and I think I speak for the whole community when I say we are all very interested in. It's definitely David Braben's jumpers.
I think David Braben gets his jumper from Giles Brandreth, actually.
He gets them from Marks and Spencer's. He told us during the Kickstarter.
I do know. I was going to say, I do know controversially that in that segment he didn't have a ship in the background. So
maybe he was still making it. Maybe that's what he did in lockdown, was make that ship.
That's a good point, isn't it?
What do you mean make a ship? Like out of papier-mâché?
No, you can buy ship model kits, and then you can construct them either out of wood or plastic or
Yeah, maybe.
various materials.
Yeah. He's got a model of the Victory in his office, hasn't he? Maybe he's got a handsy dude. Maybe he likes making things out of. Maybe he likes craft kits and things. Who knows? Anyway, we're getting into very bizarre speculation now. Let's move on. So the other thing that came out of the report is that Frontier are estimating that 1 million copies of Odyssey will be sold in the first year. That seems, given that there were 4 million copies of Elite Dangerous sold before the Epic giveaway, and then another 8 million given away to Epic players. That seems pretty conservative to me, doesn't it?
It depends on how many of those accounts were multiples of the same player.
Well, no, I mean the 1 million copies of Odyssey when there are 12 million copies or whatever it is out in the wild at the moment of the base game. That seems quite a low estimate, really, to me. Expecting them to only sell 1 million copies of Odyssey.
It kind of depends, I think, because in that sale, are they including lifetime members, and how many lifetime members are there? Because they won't be sales, will they? Of Odyssey.
I don't think there are that many.
Then you have to think, well, out of the average Elite player, how many have one or more accounts? Because I know I certainly got 3 accounts. I know I'm not. I know we're near having the most accounts. So it won't be 4 million copies of Odyssey because you'll have multiple accounts in that total.
Yeah, but will you buy Odyssey for all of them?
No, I won't.
No, okay, yeah, fair enough. Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good question. I'm pretty sure they sold half as many copies of Horizons as they did the base game. I don't know whether that was in the first year. I'm pretty sure it was in the first year. Don't quote me on that. So yeah, that I don't know. It looks to me like they're slightly lowballing that 1 million. So they could be in for a pleasant surprise, I reckon. Ventura says, "How about the Epic account holder who will need to buy the upgrade?" Well, I mean, this, yeah, exactly. That was the point of the Epic giveaway, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Get a load of people into the ecosystem and prime them to buy Odyssey. And given that I'm pretty sure they gave away something like 8 million. What's the word?
By gave away, you mean Epic bought 8 million copies of Elite Dangerous and gave that much to Frontier.
Yeah. But given that there are sort of 8 million new players with the Epic giveaway accounts, it seems very conservative to expect that only 1 million. Sorry?
And by new players, you mean every single person who's got a copy of Elite Dangerous and an Epic store or got a second copy of Elite.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. That would be a lot of them, but there's still a lot of brand new people in that number. I mean, I've come across quite a lot of them. I've come across 5 or 6 people who I've met in the community who have said, "Oh, I got the game on Epic, and I've been playing it since then and loving it." So thinking that only 1 million of those are going to convert seems quite conservative to me. Any thoughts? No. Cool. All right, we'll move on. What is the? No one's asking about this energy link picture. Do we want to talk about this? Where is this picture even from? Ben,
I don't know.
can you shed any light?
Click on it and you'll find out. But it's from Twitter. It should be linked, I think.
Oh yeah, there we go.
Yes,
Yeah. All right, yeah. Let's if it's been on Twitter, let's stick it in the chat. So yeah, this is the energy link, which you see a player. I can't remember if it's. I think it's
This is
Bruce.
the thing that one of them went off and blew shit up with the other day, isn't it?
Yeah, they used it to overload the in the gameplay video that we saw. They used this to overload the door control for the reactor room. So
very nicely said, "This is illegal. Don't do it."
Yeah. So the tweet said it was sent by Elite Dangerous. It looks like 3 hours ago, so it was earlier today. it said the energy link tool transfers energy between the user's suit battery and a target socket. It also discharges powerful electric pulses over a short distance. So this to me is interesting because it looks like it's being posited as a sort of multi-tool type thing for mucking about with sockets, as we saw in that gameplay video. But the discharging powerful electric pulses over a short distance, that kind of hints to the stun gameplay that they that Arthur's talked about being problematic with Peggy.
It looks like it's made by Black & Decker, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
I was thinking it looked like one of those petrol pumps, but without the nozzle.
Well, if I was being really geeky, I would say it looks like a CCS connector to go in an electric vehicle, but then that's really geeky.
That is pretty geeky, yeah.
Mm.
It does. It looks pretty stubby, doesn't it? I'm really interested as to whether you'll be able to use it as a sort of close combat type weapon, and whether the stunning enemies makes it into the game. Because we know that they were having a lot of trouble with the ratings agencies about that. Given that if you can stun a player and then kill them while they're prone, it would bump the age rating of the game up. So given that they're sort of leaning into that ability, I wonder whether that indicates that they've had any resolution on that issue. I'm not sure. Go on.
It may end up being if the stun may work towards a shield drain or something. If they have problems with that, I would imagine, because I believe they've said that they're going to be trying to translate the mechanics that we have in ships to similar to what we have with on foot combat, with regards to energy versus kinetic and what have you.
Yeah, good point. That would be a neat resolution actually if it was used for shield drain. That's a good point.
I'm just mesmerized by it still, personally.
What, that energy link?
Yes, yeah. I'm also distracted by the fact that I need to put some unleaded in my car after this.
Good. I'm glad. It's interesting that you that we've all gone to different places. Like Ben and I thought it was a drill. Shan thought it was an accessory for Tesla. You thought it was a petrol pump. Like nobody thought, oh, that's definitely a device for delivering electric shocks over short distances.
That hasn't got a prong at the top, has it? Usually when you think of something to deliver an electric shock, you don't sort of think of a flat, stubby nose. You think it should have a prong or something to shoot something out of, rather than just what looks like as you say, a nozzle of some sort.
Yeah, agreed.
Or maybe a little prong pops out. Maybe it will deliver the shock, and then so it's like the Dyson multi-tool we talked about,
like the mouth of the alien.
Well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Who knows? Who knows, Shan? We shall find out on the 29th, no doubt. Anyway, let's move on to in-game events. What has been happening this week? Actually, quite a lot's been happening this week, hasn't it? We've had a Galnet story on every day. Oh no, apart from it looks like there was one on the 10th, 2 on the 11th, 1 on the 12th, and 1 on the 15th. I don't know if there's one today. I'll have a look. So we had first of all on the 10th we had the recap of the Adamaster mystery, which it's quite a nice idea actually. I think to recap some of the stories that have happened in Elite, and this is something that we do on Sagittarius Eye a bit. Is we'll occasionally recap an issue with a sort of potted history to introduce new players to something that may have happened a long time ago, like for example discovering the Guardians or working out or how a given mystery was solved. And I think doing that on Galnet in a nice snappy format is a really good way to bring the many new players up to speed on some of the rich lore of the game. Then we had on the 11th we had the big news of the week, which was the what came to be known as the 9 Martyrs attacks, the terrorist bombings on 9 starports, which has led all of us to be ferrying people out of Lave Station.
And me to run out of stock of enzyme.
Yeah. No, I mean that was completely unrelated though, Shan. Like, that's just the vagaries of the markets, surely.
I suspect so. I mean, they paid over market price for them, so
they must have really needed them for something.
Well, they wanted Amazon Prime delivery on them for next day. So,
do you do next day delivery?
I can do for a price.
Okay. Yeah. Good. Well, whatever those people really needed their enzyme missiles for, sounds like you got to them in good time. And then a very short time later, obviously in a completely unrelated series of events, a load of enzyme missiles were used to bomb 9 of the most pivotal human-occupied systems in the bubble.
Sue, sorry, quick question on that though. I mean, they went for the primary systems in the bubble.
Yeah.
They went for the Alliance. They went for Federation. They went for Empire. So what got Lave got to do with it? Because we're independent. We're neutral, and we just mind our own business.
That's got to do with it.
I should think that's fairly obvious, really. I'm not wanting to say censorship of the press or anything, but I think they're trying to shut us up, frankly.
What? Lave but a Cariola station.
Yeah, but they could have just paid me more money for the stuff, or they could have bribed us or something, and we would have willingly.
Bribes, that's true.
Yeah, so they missed a trick, but I guess they wanted something to give people to do.
I think Lave is supposed to be one of the most important. It's a historically important system because it's where the Pilots Federation Training Center was years and years ago, and it was the administrative heart of Galcop, I believe, and it is now one of the most storied and famous independent systems, isn't it? So I can see why they, not just in terms of like, Elite Dangerous fans like it, but also in like I can understand why an in-fiction terrorist association would target.
See, I would have gone for Shinrata Desra.
Yeah, I do find it weird that they didn't do that. That's a good point. Yeah.
Or Slough Orbital, just to get the hammers crying.
I believe Shinrata Desra will very much be something that we see in Flames before Odyssey. It would be kind of a very appealing way to get players in to do something they feel passionate about before the launch. So I'm still betting on that.
Yeah. Ventura's just made the point that not everybody has access to Shinrata Desra, which is a really, really good point.
But then not everyone has access to Sol or Akinar.
Or Akinar and places like that too.
Good point. Yeah, true. Yeah, maybe they're keeping the powder dry. Maybe there's a bit more. Maybe there's a ratcheting of tension going to happen. And lots of people have been saying for years that they would really like to see the. I mean, they've been saying it about the Thargoid storyline. People have been saying for years that they really want to see the bubble absolutely in flames, and to for the devs to really turn up the dial on the tension in the Thargoid story.
So, do you think that? And this is me being a little bit cynical because I very rarely am. Do you think they had this in mind and they wanted the Thargoids to do it, but because Ida was so effective, they had to think of a different way of doing it other than Thargoids?
No, I don't think that. If I was them, I would. If I was Frontiers writers, I'd be like, right, well, we are all about maximum return for effort, and we already have these burning station assets covered in green goo. Let's. Players have been doing the station, have been firefighting with the station attacks for years now. We need a new, fresh storyline. Otherwise, we're going to get accusations that we're just recycling the same old thing. Let's invent terrorist attacks using enzyme bombs so that we can reuse those burning station assets with a brand new narrative. That's why I think they deliberately didn't choose Thargoids for it. And
well,
I think it's the right decision as well.
If Ida hadn't been so effective at fixing stations, would they have gone and done this and called it Thargoids? But because Ida was effective with fixing stations, they kind of had to think, well, we've got these assets. We want to do the shock value of main systems on fire. We can't blame the Thargoids because, hey, Ida's been looking after that will.
Yeah, but they still need to
Is it-
fix these stations afterwards. It doesn't matter if the Thargoids bust the stations or the Neomalonists bust the stations. The station still needs to get busted, get fixed, and that's Operation Ida's Raison d'etre.
Yeah.
What if we go completely off tilt here and merge the two and say that NMLAs is actually Thargoids that have somehow created a ruse to look human? And no, that's ridiculous.
We're going full on Battlestar Galactica theory.
Right, I mean, no, I'll show myself out.
Maybe
Why
that's
not?
Maybe that's what's happened to Colin. Maybe he was like one of the top 5 Thargoid agents, and that's where he's gone. He's the final 5 Thargoid agents. There's one of them, Colin.
He would be the last person you'd expect to be a Thargoid agent, which is probably what you want out of an agent, isn't it?
Well, that's right. So all the Thargoid ships he destroyed to get his elite ranking. That was just a cover.
A ruse.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Maybe
that's why maybe that's why Mrs. Defier is flogging him at this very moment for botched espionage.
Well, you mean hitting his carapace?
Twanging his antennae, maybe. Yeah, who knows?
I've never heard that as a euphemism for.
It wasn't a euphemism at all. No, definitely not.
So Mrs. Colin is twanging his antennae.
But yeah, the Nine Martyrs attacks, as they have become known, have dominated the week's news, unsurprisingly. How do we feel about this storyline in general? Do we like it? Do we think it's going in an interesting direction? Do we think that interesting threads are being pulled upon? Jez, why don't you tell us what you think?
Yes, I believe very much in this storyline that it's heading to great places. However, I do believe it needs a landmark moment, an aha moment, a kind of a checkpoint, if you will, that ties up some of the mysteries and then evolves other ones. Because I think right now, as a player, sometimes it can feel like it's a bit never-ending. I think some form of closure on something would be nice at this point.
Interesting. Yeah. God, if you'd imagine if we could rewind to a year ago or 9 months ago, imagine the complaint that Galnet was never ending. How thrilled we would be. God, we would have given our limbs for Galnet to be never ending. Wow.
You'll have the Frontier streams and people will be like, "Are we done with Galnet yet?" Can we stop that? No.
I remember that a couple of years ago, Obsidian Ant did a video called in which he questioned whether the Elite Dangerous community was suffering from CG fatigue. We had too many CGs, and we were all suffering from CG fatigue. And you could impute this from the player numbers involved with CGs. And I thought about that video when Frontier announced that they were pulling the plug on all CGs and everything from the game. I sort of thought about that video and I was like, God, it really is famine or feast, isn't it? It's kind of a combination of people never being satisfied with what they've got and also things usually coming in a different quantity to what you actually desire. But I do know what you mean about the closure. I do get that. It doesn't particularly reflect how news works in real life, I don't think. But I know exactly what you mean with the feeling that things just sort of roll on and change, and they don't, and it's not following, so far at least. We may be viewing it in too smaller scale to realize, but so far at least it doesn't look like it's a story being told in the traditional 3-act structure or whatever. We're not seeing, it doesn't look like we're heading to a thrilling denouement or whatever.
I mean, personally, I think they kind of should have done this when the Thargoids were at their peak, and they could still blame the NMLA, which would then introduce was it Thargoids, was it whatever, and I don't know. I think it's kind of lost its impact to me personally.
Interesting.
That's I mean, whether I'm just heartless and don't really care about burning stations and that sort of stuff because the rewards aren't that great. I don't know, but I don't know. I kind of done it because it's been a while since I had a go at rescuing passengers, but it left me a bit cold, if I'm being honest about it.
Interesting. My instinct is to put that down to veteran ennui rather than a problem with the narrative itself. I think that I really like this narrative. I think it gives it's quite a grown up story. It adds a lot of depth to the galaxy. Like it is, there are missteps. Like occasionally it sort of feels a little bit like they're sort of inventing people. And announcing that so and so has died, and because we've never heard the name before, it lacks punch for us. But broadly, I think it's a pretty good storyline. It really sets up. One nice thing about it is I don't know where it's going to go. Like as somebody who sort of thinks about stories and narrative quite a lot, I can't easily say, oh, this is a classic X story. I don't know where they're going with it, which is a good position to be in. I sort of felt like in was it 3303? Yeah, sort of 3303, 3304. I sort of felt like the particularly with the Cold War between the Empire and the Federation, it did very much feel like it was it was going in one direction, and we were very clearly being led to rattling sabers. Is it going to be war? Isn't it? There's going to be a big flashpoint between the Empire and the Federation. And this doesn't feel like it's got a trajectory like that. It doesn't feel like we're inexorably drifting towards anything, which means that anything could happen, really. Anyway, go on. Sorry, Jess.
Sorry, I think as far as the game goes, I do think we'll find that these CG stories around the time that Odyssey launches will make way for the Alliance to become a power that we have to do stuff for unlocking certain ships. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they are adding more ships for Odyssey. They will be, at least some of them, locked behind Alliance reputation gathering. Because we've got a very big power shift right now, and the Alliance, out of all three of them, look to be gaining a little bit, and the other two seem to be suffering a little bit.
Yeah, okay. Interesting. Yeah, okay. Wotherspoon says the characters they've killed have all been mentioned in Galnet previously, so yeah, fair enough. I'm duly corrected. Do you want to take a stab at where you think it's going to go beyond that? You think this is leading into doing for the Alliance to be a sort of primary mission giver? Is that sort of where you think it's going?
I do, because I mean, there's clearly, it exists amongst all three, but it's very prominent. There's clearly in-house problems with the Federation and the Empire right now, with all of the events that have been transpiring, and Hudson is, or at least until the events of last week, was not looking very likely for re-election. And I think if when powers start turning in on themselves, you're leaving the door open for the smaller fry to become more appealing and gain more power kind of behind the scenes. And I think the reason why that I find that appealing is a lot of players have kind of said, well, what incentive do we have to work for the Alliance other than the roleplay element?
Yeah, absolutely that. I think the other thing is that just from a sort of where the holes are point of view, it is very obvious that the Alliance is conspicuous being the only superpower that doesn't have its own Navy rank progression.
Mm.
So yeah, that would make a great deal of sense, actually. Anyway, if that is all you guys have to say on that, we'll move on to the bit of the show that everybody's been waiting patiently for over an hour now. It is the store alert. Norman, can you play our store alert jingle? Store alert.
That's the wrong one.
Is that all you've got?
Store alert!
There we go.
In the bi-weekly newsletter, here come paint jobs for your art. In the bi-weekly newsletter, here come paint
that every time. Oh,
It needs a second verse now.
yeah, it does. Yeah, get on it, Tracks.
Colin, come on. When you get out of your discipline.
When you spit out the ball gag. Why is it up to Colin anyway? He didn't make it.
He's not here.
So?
Well, if you're not here, you get given the action. That's the first rule of meetings, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. That is true. Yeah. Anyway, store alert. Let's get back to the business in hand. What has been in the store alert? I've got absolutely no bloody idea. Somebody tell me what has been in the store alert.
It's so gripping. None of us know.
Does anybody know?
It does work when I find my button to push. It's a lovely image of a beluga. Of an orca, sorry.
It's the orca. The orca image. Oh, there we go. Put it in the chat. Look at that. Beautiful. There we go, listeners. What a time to be alive. It is a stripy orca in the newsletter, in the store alert, this very week. There you go.
I posted the link into the chat. It is a stripy orca.
Beautiful.
So you two can look glorious whilst rescuing people from Lave Station.
Yeah, you can plunge your stripy orca straight into that mail slot.
Yeah. Although, not that it's a size issue or anything, but I far prefer using my beluga. I just fit more into it.
Is it a compensation thing, Ben?
It might be. But yeah, I just think in certain issues, more is better.
Beluga man syndrome, they call it, I believe.
Possibly. And unwilling full is suggesting that stripes on a car make it faster, and therefore stripes on an orca probably also make it faster.
I mean, that's just science. They do.
It's science right there.
Yeah, absolutely. Great. Okay. Well, if everybody can mop their brows and sit down, take your seats, get back to the serious business of normal Lave radio procedure. Yeah, then we'll move on from the store alert. Difficult and emotional though it is. Main discussion. What are we talking about? We are continuing the questions that we were talking about last week, aren't we?
We need adverts first, Steve.
Oh yeah, we do. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Let's play some adverts. The adverts.
The Federal Navy. We want you for Adventures Unlimited.
Just last week I was mixing Sidewinder slammers at a seedy space bar. I wasn't even pilot registered. And now I have a ship and a basic starting mission for the Federal Navy.
Owing to recent actions in the Lave region, the Federal Navy now seeks to recruit another 1,000 entry-level pilots. We need you to add your strength to our military machine.
I'm going to see the galaxy.
We have missions for all pilots, regardless of combat experience or flight hours. Come and talk to us and we'll get you on the military ladder. Join the Federal Navy. Make a real pilot of yourself, or die trying.
Wait, what's that? Is that a ship coming? Are they looking for me? What do they...
Lave Radio, transmitting to every corner of the galaxy.
This is a public service announcement from the Fuel Rats. Please stop what you're doing and pay attention. If we can rescue you, we will, but you can help us help you by following these easy steps. 1. Fly 50 light seconds or so from the system's main star and drop out of supercruise. 2. Note down the current system and the nearest stellar body. 3. If you're on emergency life support, log out immediately. 4. Go to fuelrats.org and click Get Help. 5. Stay calm, hold your breath, and let our seasoned professionals do what they do best. The Fuel Rats. We have fuel, you don't. Any questions?
Eddie Lee Wise here. Our family-run business looks after all your sartorial needs. Whether you need something to turn your pink python purple, or you want to wrap your buns up in a nice tight flight suit, my husband Ken can sort you right out. He's an expert at inside leg, and my wife Barbs is a whiz with a sewing machine. Bespoke tarting for you and your ship. Visit Eddie and Sons, plus me daughters, at Lave Station. Right, sir. Cough, please.
And now it's time for the main discussion. So we're continuing going through the questions that were released in the Q&A following the gameplay release video. We in the last show we talked about some of them, and we'll just wrap them up. We'll wrap them up now. I think probably the easiest thing to do is for me to read them out and then get you guys to give your thoughts on them, because I imagine that to do with the I imagine that some of these are going to spark quite a lot of debate. So I'll read. What I'll do is I'll read the questions and the answers out, and then ask you guys what you think, and you can chip in. So the first one was, can you talk about the different suits in Odyssey? And Gareth said, yes, as you can see in the video, players can take up different roles depending on the suit they use, which is information we already had. The tactical suit, for example, can carry 2 different weapons, which is unique to that suit. So you need to consider the best suit for the mission you're about to engage in. This is information we already had. We did know that there would be, I think, 4 suits, aren't there? And we knew that the tactical suit had 5, for example. Don't
you have? You've got the suit of hearts, clubs, diamonds, and what's the other thing again? So,
we should name them that.
I think that idea is a busted flush.
Oh.
But
no, that's not. There's not particularly new information there.
No. It's interesting though. Have they talked about the role of suits in solo mode? Because if you look at the video, they actually specifically mention, you've got the fighting suit, you stay out there and hold them off, and I've got the engineering suit.
Yeah.
So is there going to be like a surface like telephone box you can jump into and change your suit and then jump out?
Like Superman.
Yeah.
These are the questions that I would love to have answered. I would love to know whether you can change your... I'd love to know whether you can take your helmet off. I'd love to know whether you change your suit
well, you don't
instantly.
Want to take your helmet off, unless you're... At least if you're in your...
Yeah, but if you had a phone box, if you had a telephone box, it would be a pressurized phone box, wouldn't it? So you could take your helmet off.
Is this something that MMOs generally have? Deployable phone boxes for changing clothes?
Depends on the game, per se. Because what
you just sort of do it in the open, I think.
Well, it depends on the game, because in some games, like the infamous one I always talk about, you can actually change your build just simply by changing your weapons. So you can weapon swap, and by swapping weapons, you will change your abilities. And you may be more offensive to defensive. So
it definitely
do
would
it mid-fight.
Do you frequently make yourself more offensive, Shan?
That sounds quite hard.
I'm very rarely offensive.
Oh, okay.
Did you say very rarely offensive? Because I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
That's what I heard.
I would definitely agree with that, Shan. I think that's a very accurate assessment.
But being serious for a moment,
okay.
I wonder if you will be able to change your loadout. And I'd make the joke with a telephone box, but it would be like if you go out of combat and you're in a pressurized area, can you change your suit to be a different role?
Yeah, that's a good point.
I would say it probably would make sense.
What would make sense, Ben?
The ability to change out our equipment if we're in the middle of something. Not while you're in danger, but as Shan says, could I go into some closet somewhere in the
and then come out of the closet,
get changed, and then come out of the closet again?
I don't like I can't think of an implementation. I can't think of any problem with the idea that you can only change your flight suit in your ship? Given that spaceships are going to be given that being in and out of your
It might
spaceship
be
is
too
going to...
far away.
Although, would it not detract from the tactical element of
Possible.
the game? Because the other school of thought, and again, I'll talk about Guild Wars 1. You could change your weapons in Guild Wars 1, but it didn't change your loadout, so to speak. It just changed what you fought with. So once you had your loadout, once you had your build, if you like, in Guild Wars 1, and went out of the hub into the instance, you then couldn't change anything about your build. And that was part of the skill of adapting your build to the area you were going into. And that was fixed. So that made a very interesting tactical environment. But I don't know.
I know Warcraft, I think you could change your armor as and when you liked, as long as you weren't in combat, I believe. Mass Effect, on the other hand, you basically you have to pick your team, and you're locked to that team until you finish your mission. SWTOR, I think, lets you pick and choose your armor. Again, as long as you're not in combat. It's very like WoW, really. Fallout, you can change it anytime you like, really.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we'll have to. I think there does need to be an element of commitment to. There's no point having the different suit variants if you can swap them in and out like that with no planning. Like there has to be an element of commitment for them to have meaning. But
I like that idea, but a lot of games don't do that.
Okay, well that'd be a shame. Anyway, let's we'll have to wait and see on that one. Let's move on because we are running short on time. The next question: there are different types of weapons in Odyssey. Could you tell us why a player might use them? The answer is way back when we started prototyping combat, it became quite clear to us early on that the ship combat has some really interesting concepts behind it. So we basically stole them. The premise is that the kinetic weapons are good against armor, lasers are good against shields, and plasma are decent against both, but not quite as good as the other two. When it comes to choosing a loadout, you'll want to choose your weapons to be the most efficient. So you may want lasers to take out shields and kinetic to finish them off. If you're working as a team, you can specialize. One player can be anti-shield, and the other can finish them off via kinetic. What I found interesting, something I found interesting about this is that the way that the answer's phrased, it sort of implies a little bit like the Odyssey team were separate to the base game team. It sort of reads a little bit like, we started playing Elite Dangerous and we saw how the ships worked, and we thought, hey, we could make Odyssey weapons look a bit similar, rather than right, we're these devs. We've been working on this game for 7 years. We know exactly how all the ships are going to work. So how the ship combats work. So we'll emulate that. Do you know what I mean? It sort of sounds like it sounds like the team sort of looked at Elite Dangerous with fresh eyes, so to speak. And I wonder whether that is an indication that there are quite a lot of new devs on it, maybe who are specialists in first-person games that have come from other studios. I don't know.
Oh, I know that isn't Pierce a FPS developer?
I have no idea.
He's a well-established one, I believe. Yes.
Yeah.
I think that sounds like another element of rock paper scissors gameplay.
Yeah. In terms of things having the weapons being tools with specialist uses.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, it works well for the ships. Like nobody's ever said, "Oh, do you know what? The basic combat mechanics of Elite Dangerous are rubbish." So if it works for ships, it could presumably work quite well for first-person combat.
I mean, I believe kind of the shooting element of the Destiny game has a sort of similar concept of certain weapons or certain ammo types in this case are better against shield drain versus physical damage. So it's a tried and true method.
Yeah, exactly. Right, next one. Question. For the getaway, we landed on the side of the settlement for a quick escape. There's been a small change in this, hasn't there? And the answer is yes, you can now automatically land on planet surfaces. It's hard to encapsulate all the changes in a few minutes of video. When players get hold of the alpha, that's when they'll really understand what they've done. So when I read this, I thought, okay, well, what's happened is they've added a thing that lets you say land, and then the ship will just within 100 yards squared, for example, it will search for somewhere where it can land itself and just land there, kind of like an auto land feature. Is that what you guys got from that?
Yes, I thought it was a quality of life improvement. If you ever tried to land at a Guardian site or on a particularly bumpy surface, you kind of like play the left a bit, right a bit, forward a bit until the blue dot appears, and then the blue dot will disappear the closer to the surface you get, and you have to keep trying it again. So I kind of interpreted that as it will hover around and find a landing spot for you.
Yeah, that's exactly what I interpreted that as well. Cool. Okay, next one. Can you talk about suit management? There are different things that can pull on the suit's power. There's the life support machine, things like the shield, which is power hungry when turned on, and some of the tools can use your suit power. Survival actually starts to become something you need to become considerate of. Presumably that means consider in certain situations. If you're at a settlement, there are areas when you can recharge your suit, but if you're out exploring, there's certainly a risk factor involved. Environmental factors can also have an effect on how hard your suit has to work to keep you alive. If you're in really extreme temperatures, you'll be taking physical damage. You can disembark somewhere on the planet with safe temperatures, but you can quite quickly end up somewhere where the temperature is much hotter and end up in danger. I was really excited by this. I thought this was really, really cool. I love what it means for. I love the added element of risk and tension it adds for solo players. I love the fact that it gives such a lot of meaning to your outfitting choices, like what you choose to take with you. I love how much it speaks to plausibility and it means that the stats that until now have just been dry data about planets might start to become much more urgent and important and have much more impact on the player experience. It's probably my favorite out of all the questions, actually.
I agree. I'm very excited by that because as an explorer, we don't tend to get an idea of the. Other than the presentation in numbers, we don't really get a sense of what the environment is like on the planet's surface. So that really appeals to me.
Yeah. Now, actually, it's sort of the only things we've seen from Odyssey footage so far have been, apart from the planetary tech itself in the landscapes, the only thing we've really seen is combat. So actually, that answer says a lot about what you can expect from the exploration experience. Like the planets you explore, you'll have to pay attention to their atmospheric characteristics and plan accordingly, which is really exciting. That answer has probably got me more excited about exploration in Odyssey than anything else we've seen so far, I think.
I can add something else into the mix that I think that we accidentally discovered last night when we was talking to Bruce on the podcast, so it's already in the public domain now. In regards to planetary exploration, he also did let us know that there's going to be transient points of interest on planets, kind of like signal sources right now. So it's going to add that element to planetary exploration too, which was quite a nice surprise to hear.
Yeah, that's cool. Cool. All right. Well, the other thing that we'll move on if nobody else has anything to add, but the other thing we wanted to talk about as part of our main discussion and our community question this week is exploits in games. And there is a reason that this has come up, and I think the reason we've am I right in thinking that it's because of Hawks Gaming's video about how to AFK your way to billions in Elite Dangerous? Is this why
you are indeed?
Yeah,
that's correct. I'm thinking actually, shall we very, very quickly touch on it? Let Jez say his opinion, and then move on and actually cover it properly and maybe make it.
You cut out.
Sorry, I'm just thinking. Do we have time to do this?
Do it justice. Or shall we quickly bring it up just now? Let Jez say his piece. Yeah,
and then cover it properly next week.
Yeah. Let's do it as the. We'll do it as the question tonight, and get listeners to chip in with their thoughts, and then we'll use those as launchpad for talking about it and
Yeah,
giving
they
it
have
all of
thoughts that
next
we
week's. Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. So yeah, what kicked this off is Hawks Gaming has released a video which will be in our show notes called "How to AFK Your Way to Billions in 2021," and it's about Elite Dangerous, and it's about how to make loads of money without playing the game. Be as rich as possible, playing the game as little as possible. And they there is a summary of his points, but I won't go through that now. I'll leave it in the show notes. But it got us talking earlier about what we think exploits are in games and what they what constitutes an exploit, what should be done about them. How much players could be expected to self-police in terms of exploits, all that kind of thing. And Jez was there too, and we all had some really interesting thoughts about it. So, Jez, if you want to kick us off, what is your view of the history of dealing with exploits in Elite and the way they've been dealt with, and whether you'd have liked to see whether you'd have liked to see Frontier take what impact that has on a multiplayer game like Elite Dangerous?
Yeah, so exploits is always a very difficult word because everybody, I believe, a lot of individuals have different ideas about exactly what constitutes as an exploit. Though I think for most of the things that we see in Elite Dangerous, any action that the developers would have to take is simple gameplay changes, not sort of punitive actions on anybody engaged in such activities. Though in relation to that particular video, I don't personally see it as exploits because it's all very readily accessible ways of playing the game without having to do any kind of magic tricks. Though it's a very powerful and potent way to play the game without any effort. So it's definitely a.
Yeah.
Whilst it may not be an exploit, it certainly is something that probably isn't a great thing to have in the game for a long time.
Yeah, Shan.
Yeah, I tend to go along with what was just said. I mean, yes, it's a bit cheesy, but if you look at the requirements that you need to do the AFK, it's not as though you can do it in a Sidewinder straight off the bat. You need your Type 10, you need the engineering materials, you need to rank up the engineering. So you sort of need a certain level of competence and achievement in the game to even get started. And it's one of those things, I think, where someone has found the build and the technique to, I wouldn't say cheese, but basically to use the game's mechanics to their advantage. And that's not an exploit. That's just ingenuity of a player. It would be an exploit if they used a hack engine or something like that to change the memory values in the game to make your lasers super powerful or glitch your shields, or that would be an exploit. This is just someone thinking through, well, these ships in this res zone, they're not that powerful, and if I fill myself full of cargo that attack, how do I give myself enough shield and regeneration to be able to withstand that? I know I'll do this. So that's actually logical thinking in the game. And I like was just said, it's up to Frontier to combat that through either changing the NPC loadout or their behavior or something or other. It's a bit cheeky, but it's not an exploit in my view.
So what you just described as exploits, I would describe those as cheating. If you do things like change the values to make your lasers more powerful, to paraphrase to quote one of our lovely adverts, then that's just flat out cheating. That's not an exploit. I would classify an exploit as something that is permissible within the rules of the game, but somehow is contrary to the implied spirit of those rules.
Yeah,
like, for example, board flipping.
Let's just talk about a scenario that, if you played other games, I'm sure people have done or seen, is that in a raid or in an encounter with mobs or a boss, there are tactics to, let's say, for example, you pull the trash mobs away from the boss so you can kill them separately and then you then attack the boss. Is that an exploit or is that just being clever?
Yeah.
Because this is the same. This is, you look at the encounter, you say, okay, the weaknesses of this encounter is this, this, and this. So therefore, I will adapt my ship, I will adapt my skill set, I will use different tactics so it targets that with those weaknesses so that it's easier for me to achieve. It's a really fine line, but I don't know. It's cheesing, it's cheesing the mechanics, and it's a bit lame to be honest. But is it an exploit? I don't think so.
I think part of my attitude to this is about how much of a competitive game Elite Dangerous is, and therefore how much of a problem people spoiling their own experiences. Like for me, I have noticed with Elite Dangerous, and actually with all games, that you start off thinking, "Oh God, what I need to do is get X. I want to get that spaceship. God, it's going to be so good when I've got that spaceship. All the things I'll be able to do." And you play and you do the missions and you make the money and you finally buy that spaceship and it's a great moment. And then when you look back, you realize that the real fun was when you were saving up the money for that spaceship. The anticipation of getting it was really great, and the things that the game was getting you doing were really fun. So actually, I feel like we, as a bit of a psychological phenomenon, we misidentify where gratification is going to come from in games. We think of something, we think we'll be happy when we get X, like a destination or a goal, whereas actually it is the journey or the getting there or the trying to earn that thing that gives us the real pleasure. And I feel like something like this AFKing your way to billions is probably running the risk of making that mistake, in that you think, oh, when I've got my billions, I'll be able to get a fleet carrier. It's going to be great. And I feel like when you get your fleet carrier, I feel like if it was me, I would probably be a little bit like, I'd be a bit like, shit, actually, do you know what? Earning those billions by playing the game would have been the real fun. And actually now I've got my fleet carrier, it doesn't feel that fun at all. That's, I don't know, that would be my kind of, but that's different to it being problematic for a multiplayer game in terms of player balance. It's a different issue. The other thing I'm aware of is that the initial question was just, what do you think about exploits generally? Whereas we've homed in on this specific one. So just for listeners who didn't follow that, this specific exploit is about building a ship which can, with turreted beam lasers and a weapons-focused power distributor, which can just sit in conflict zones and just take out enemies without you even needing to be at the PC or whatever.
But back in the distant past, do you remember the war in Lave? CG?
Yeah.
And how you could position your ship in the middle of the capital ship in Lave with turrets. And you could basically sit there and you would get credit for the kills that the capital ship shot. So therefore you could almost AFK your way to elite rank.
Yeah. Sorry, I've realised that I missed out Jez there. Shan, are you finished or are you?
Well, that's all. I'm happy to listen to Jez's thing because he did bring up the topic. So
I do apologise because like I said, I've definitely focused in on this issue when we probably wanted to have more of a broader analysis on it. Though I do think it's important to bring up that really at the moment, the way I feel about credits in Elite Dangerous, beyond the argument of getting things too soon and cheating yourself out of an experience, I was talking to somebody about it that said this system is not exactly something new, but it has been used before for people to get significant rank points for the seasonal rankings. That's when I feel the waters become very muddy, because that is when you are definitely using a mechanic to detriment other players. And kind of discounting their hard work playing as intended, but still, I still have a hard time using the E word around it.
That's a really really good point. Yeah, because those rankings are very much tests of how much you play the game and how well you play the game.
But then the onus is on Frontier to change it. I mean, the example I used in Discord earlier on when we sort of discussing this offline, was again in Guild Wars 1, there was a build called the 55 Monk. And basically what it was is you lowered your character's hit points down from 500 and something to 55. And you then used an enchantment skill which said you will incur no more than 10% of your maximum health damage per hit. So that's 5 points of damage. You then ran another enchantment which then said every time you're hit, you then recover 10 points of damage or something. So basically, as long as you ran those enchantments, you couldn't be killed. And the devs were quite open, and they said, that is complete genius, because we never dreamed anyone would think about lowering their character's maximum health to make it invincible. And people say, oh, that was an exploit, whatever, but that was just people being smart. And then to their credit, the ArenaNet developers didn't just say, well, we'll delete those enchantments from the game, we'll stop this happening. They then put mobs and techniques into the level that people use it on to make it more challenging and skillful to operate the build. So there's like an arms race of them adding things to strip the enchantments or whatever it was. They almost kind of like made a contest between themselves and the people who did the build to try and make it so it's still doable, but you needed an increasing level of skill to do it. And that's what the approach I feel Frontier should do for this, is they shouldn't just, nerf it or punish people. They should say, well, actually, how can we make it more challenging for the player to carry this out?
Yeah, is that the response you'd have liked to have seen, or would you have preferred them to nerf it into oblivion?
At the time, people were very much against it. Oh, they should nerf it. They should nerf it. Then there was a group of people that actually said, no. The whole point of the game is to look at the skills, look at the build, and assess the best way of doing something, or the most fun way of doing something. And so most people were in admiration of the thought behind the build, and they were glad ArenaNet didn't just nerf it outright, but sought to increase player skill level and inventiveness to make it still work.
Yeah. Fair enough. The Silent Man, Ben, Commander Edelweiss, you have been you've been succeeding in saying absolutely nothing for quite a long time. Do you have any views on exploits in Elite Dangerous, and specifically this one?
I have many and more, but I was going to save them for next week.
Good stuff. Excellent. All right then. So the community question this week, then, that I'll stick in here because it's appropriate, is: would you use an exploit? And I mean, what I'm really interested in is, what do you think an exploit is? Because some of them, in our conversation, we had people saying, oh, there was this and this were allowed, and I chose not to use them because they're an exploit. And that sort of self-policing by players interests me, because it's deliberately foregoing rewards in a game that's all about challenge, because you perceive something to be an exploit when the devs don't necessarily see something as an exploit, because they actually, Frontier did actually say that they don't consider board hopping to be a correctable. They don't consider it to be worthy of correction or credit confiscation, because it's how the game works. So when you've got Frontier saying that something's okay, but then players are still deciding not to do it themselves, as most of us do, that's interesting. That sort of implies that that players are relatively self-policing. So the question is: would you use an exploit? Specifically, what do you think of this one, setting up a ship to go AFK with? What do you consider okay that some other people might think is an exploit? And conversely, what do you think is too much? What do you think is too exploitative of the game? This is going to be a really interesting one, and I suspect that this will lead to a really, really good discussion next week. So please do email in, or tweet us, or ping us on Discord. I'll read out the comms, all of our communication stuff at the end. But yeah, please do give us your thoughts on that. And if the rest of you are happy, I think we'll probably move on to the shout-outs. Does anybody have any final business?
If someone wants to pay me 6 billion credits, I can ensure the safe return of Colin.
Brilliant, good stuff. All right then. Well, our sister station, Hutton Orbital Radio, broadcasts on Thursdays from 8:30. You can tune in at twitch.tv/Hutton Orbital Truckers, or if you just want the audio, you can go to radio.forthemug.com. If you like CQC, or as it's been rebranded, Arena, you can get much more of it by going to the CQC Discord at discord.me/Elite Dangerous CQC. We are also giving shout outs to the following Elite Dangerous podcasts, which have appeared over the last year or so and are excellent. So there is Loose Screws, Elite Week, Flight Assist. There's the Elite Cast for Spanish speakers. There's the Canon podcast. There's the Fatherhood podcast. There's Squeaking Fuel. There's System Chat, which is hosted by our very own lovely guest, WK Jez. And there's Guard Frequency, who primarily talk about the other game, but they do occasionally talk about Elite as well. There is Algarab AM, which is an Elite Dangerous podcast. Following this, we have the latest Galnet News Digest, as provided by Commander Wotherspoon. If you haven't had enough of British people talking about Elite Dangerous, then stay tuned for more of that. Oh, actually, hold on. I've missed out the community stuff. Sorry, I am not the regular host. I have missed out the community corner because we did the Hawks gaming video first. I will, before I just finish off on the shout outs, I'll just touch on some of the community stuff that I missed out. There was a video from Science Keeper called "Why Should I Bother Playing Elite Dangerous?" I did watch a little bit of this. It's in German, isn't it? Ben, can you tell us about this?
Are you sure you watched it? Because there's no words. But the guy is German.
Oh, okay.
No, it's a beautiful, beautiful video that the guy's done. And it just shows off Elite Dangerous to nearly well. It's a lovely looking video, well worth a watch, and just like I remember that game.
It's it's lovely. Yeah. It was a very nice kind of recap of what is beautiful about it, I thought.
Yeah.
In other community news, the truckers claim to have. Sorry, go on.
Minor update on that. It's not 600 now. It was 600. Now it's over 800,000.
Jesus, what? This evening?
So 600,000 when we put this into the show notes this morning, and 800,000 824,125 now. Oh no, oh god, 824,147 now.
Wow, that's incredible. So yeah, earlier today we put in our show notes, the Hutton Orbital truckers claim to have saved over 600,000 people from Lave Station. That has now ballooned to that number that Ben just read out. That's incredible.
And Etienne Dawn is very happy.
Before, these are obviously final figures are not in, but I have to give massive props to the Adam 2315, who has rescued by himself 42,313 passengers. The Cleaner has rescued 33,000. For the Mug Mustang has rescued 24,000. And out of the squadrons who are taking part, the truckers have saved 456,670 passengers. Paladin Consortium 78,528, and Lave Radio Network, all three of us, 24,888 passengers.
Isn't the Cleaner someone who goes to a murder scene and
possibly Possibly, a bit like Leon is a cleaner.
Yes.
Yes.
Do we know what proportion of the total population of Lave that is? Like that must be a not
Lave
inconsiderable
has
amount
got
of.
over 10 billion people.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Jesus,
Sorry,
get a move
15
on, people.
billion. How many of them live in Lave Station?
So are they evacuating them from the planet, even though the planet is perfectly safe? Or these are like...
Yeah, I don't know if we actually know how many people live in a station.
Does it break it down that far?
That's what I'm going to go and have a look. I don't think it does. Nope, it doesn't actually say how many people live on the station.
But I gather that Atris told me the other day that if the number of people that you rescue exceeds the population of the system, the asset actually changes to the repairing station, and the evacuation mission stops spawning. So you can't actually evacuate more people than the system has inhabitants, which I thought was pretty cool. Anyway, Commander Phoenix Defire is still being flogged as we speak. His latest archives of the Sanctimonious crew have been released. The crew were involved in the fight for HIP 53530 system against Jupiter Rochester, and the exploits can be found under the events section of the forum, or you can follow the links that will be in our show notes. And then the last piece of community news is that Malik VR, it says he's putting together an online mind map like this is a new thing, but I'm pretty sure that Malik VR's Galnet mind map is years old. I remember covering it in Sagittarius Eye about 3 years ago.
It is years old. So he was using it on basically at a local of an application. And he's basically porting that into an online tool after his mind map turned into something that was like 25 gigabytes or something ridiculous.
Lovely stuff. Okay, yeah. Well, the link to that is that's in the show notes as well, and it's pretty impressive actually. It always reminds me of just the sheer volume of lore that Elite Dangerous has.
One of the things that is awesome about it is, you know how you were saying about you don't know who these people are who have been murdered.
Yeah.
This mind map tells you exactly who they are, what story they've been involved in, and the links that we missed because it's like referencing somebody from 3 years ago. Who was like mentioned once or something stupid like that.
Yeah.
That's the kind of detail he's got in this thing, and it's just... Yeah, and he's building up his online one. But it's going to be a hell of a resource when it's eventually done.
Yeah, I imagine we'll find that really useful at Sagi.
Sagi will find it great. Garnet News Digest, brilliant, all that kind of good stuff.
Actually, on that subject, I might as well slip this into the community news. We are bringing back the print edition of Sagittarius Eye, and currently the release date that we're targeting is Friday the 23rd of April, so next month. This might possibly slip depending on how good the photography suite is in the Odyssey Alpha, because we need to be able to get into that and take decent screenshots. But assuming that it's good, and assuming that we can get lots of lovely screenshots with ease and everything goes smoothly, not only will you get the normal, the regular lovely podcast release next month, but also the PDF edition of Sagittarius Eye will return as well, which we're really, really excited about. And Odyssey and all the and the return of Galnet and all that sort of thing has really enthused our team, and there's so much energy in the online offices. It's really exciting. So yeah, look forward to that.
And I believe something else is happening on Thursday, Suv.
Is it issue 24? Sorry, 34?
34? Yeah.
Hey, lovely. What's in that one?
Stuff and more stuff. Do you really want me to go and find out, or
no? Sorry, I wondered whether you knew off the top of your head because you're a bit closer to it.
Of course, I don't. I just copied and pasted what Mac told me.
Cool.
I could find out.
Head to www.sagittarius-i.com to get the next edition of our podcast, which released.
Here we go. Here, right.
Go on then.
In this edition, we take a look at why the Empire is having so much NML despite its firepower and galactic influence. Then, to cap off our series of articles on SRV racing, we will spill the secrets of the trade and show you how to drive an SRV like you've never done before. Not content with the capabilities with the SRV, we have a guide on how to make the best use of glowing balls of death that spew forth into when you install a plasma accelerator. Finishing off with this issue, we have an ode to a flight assistant, and that I have to admit is actually beautiful.
The poem is really good.
Yeah, the poem's awesome, and
So
that poem's very nicely read by Poet Sparrow.
Read by an actual poet. There you go. Card-carrying poet. Lovely. All right. Well, I'll finish off the shout-outs then. I'm terribly sorry to those regular listeners who have been horribly discombobulated by this cock-up. Regular service will resume next week with Colin being back from his...
Assuming we can reconstitute him, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. If we can put them together, then your regular host will return.
Ben, can Colin borrow your ointment to heal?
I haven't got a lot of it left. I've used most of my ointment.
Great.
So lotion on its body, Suv.
It puts the lotion on its skin. Brilliant. Well, thanks to those who have chipped in on Twitch chat and the in-game commanders who have been hanging out in Lave with Ben. Ben, have there been any commanders hanging out with you in Lave?
There were a bunch of commanders who were around in Lave, and I basically had to leave them all alone because they were pad blocking. So, I was in open, and you couldn't land in open, and my passengers were getting increasingly irate. Then I went off to the Hut and Truckers group, and I couldn't land in the Hut and Truckers group. My passengers were getting irate. Then I went into FleetCom, and I couldn't land in FleetCom because my passengers were
Is that why your ointment is running out? Is because you've been
I was giving them
rubbing you've been rubbing the ointment over them to keep them
just to get in. Yeah. Yep.
Helps you slip in, doesn't it? Makes you.
It does.
Makes
it
you,
does.
Yeah. I get it, Ben. So yeah, thank you to Commander Edelweiss for his liberal ointment application this evening. Thank you to Commander Shan for updating us on his brood of bugaliers. Thank you very much to Jez for joining us from System Chat. I hope you've enjoyed it, Jez.
I have, and I've been inspired because the first thing I'm going to do after this podcast is go out in the garden, get my portable phone box, change my suit, and polish my helmet.
Ben could probably help you out there. So
with the ointment,
yes, please.
I was thinking the polishing, but whatever.
No, polishing with ointment on.
Anyway, that is it for another episode of Lave Radio. If you would like to get in touch with the show, and particularly if you want to chip in on a community question this week, then please do email into info@laveradio.com. You can hit us up on Facebook at facebook.com/Lave Radio. Tweet us on @Lave Radio. You can join us on Discord by going to discord.io/Lave Radio. And we also have a TeamSpeak server, which you can find at teamspeak.laveradio.com. Do get in touch if you have any questions or there is anything you'd like us to cover in a future episode. We really do love hearing from listeners, and it does inform what we talk about. So don't be shy. Lave Radio is recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30 and streamed out at laveradio.com/live. Thanks to all of you who I've already thanked, and special thanks to Commander Ventura for his patience this evening. Until next time, Commanders, fly safe. And if you can't do that, fly dangerous.
Is your life like this? Sounds like someone having an orange inserted. Need a safe word. Space can be loaded.
want to see the galaxy.
Ah, damn it. No worries, guys. Hold the fort for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Forget the Uranus talk. This is the new outro.
According to scientists, Uranus is full of methane gas.
You've been dying for something to replace your Uranus.
I think you're right, though, Colin.
What have you done with Shan, and when can we have him back?
I don't know. I'm quite attached to this one, to be honest.
Yeah, that butt clenching really was awesome.
Galnet News Digest, 16th of March, 3307. We read the news so you don't have to.
In this week's news, the 9 burning stations and what they mean.
What next for the galaxy?
The 9 burning stations and what they mean.
9 starports were bombed by the Neo-Marlinist Liberation Army last week. 9 starports for the 9 terrorists who died at Kepler Orbital, rather than be interrogated by Imperial torturers working for Denton Petraeus. But why these starports in particular? What do they tell us about the NMLA's priorities? Who do they see as the enemy, and why? It's clear that, as they said in their 9 Martyrs statement, the NMLA is treating Federation and Alliance as complicit in the oppression the Marlinists have suffered at the hands of Denton Petraeus and the Empire. As well as 3 Imperial stations, 3 Federal stations and 2 Alliance stations have also been attacked. The joker in the pack is independent Lave Station, which has Alliance history and is still closely associated with Edmund Mann, so it may be that the NMLA are a bit hazy about current galactic politics. Let's have a closer look at each of the systems that were attacked, starting with the Imperial systems.
Achenar is the system where it all started, a little over 1,000 years ago. Marlin de Val, an outspoken and wealthy child of the Federation, fed up with the corporate grind, established her democratic colony on Achenar 6D in the year 2292. And it is that ideal colony that the Marlinists, and apparently the NMLA, want to return to. But very soon after, almost before the colony had become self-sufficient, things started to change. Marlin was killed, or possibly murdered, in a shuttle crash, and a brother, Henson de Val, took over as leader. He methodically evolved the system of government to give himself more powers, using the ancient Roman and British empires as his model. By the time he declared himself emperor of this sleepy backwater colony, there was nothing dissenters could do to stop him. The distance between Sol and Achenar was such that the Federation was unable to stop this change of government. Their attempt at gunboat diplomacy in 2324 was a disaster, and eventually sowed the seeds for the Empire to expand into neighbouring systems with minimal interference. It's the seat of Imperial government, and Dawes Hub is one of the 3 luxuriously appointed Orbis starports that provide supplies and services to the 3 Earth-like worlds, New World, Conversion and Capitol, which is where the Senate sits. Attacking Dawes Hub might easily have caused casualties among the highest echelons of Imperial government, but there is, as yet, no word on any high-profile casualties. The Emperor's personal power base is in Camadenu, and it's Shan Market starport, another Orbis, and home of the Chapter House of Inquisition. was the second of the attacked stations. It's not known if the Emperor was there or in Akinar at the time of the bombings. She's not been seen in public since the bombing and has issued no statements. In fact, Emperor Arissa has said very little about anything in public for some time. She spoke at Prince Harold's funeral, and she spoke briefly about admitting Hadrian de Val into the imperial family, but she said nothing about the NMLA terrorists at all. However, as the imperial figurehead, she's automatically a target of anti-imperial terrorists. The third imperial starport bombed belongs to Senator Denton Petraeus, a hate figure among Marlinists generally for his brutal suppression of the peaceful movement for change, as well as what Chancellor Blaine described as his counterproductive tactics against the NMLA terrorists. Parkinson Dock in the Artienses is naturally enough a well-appointed Orbis starport, although it's currently a little warmer than is comfortable for its residents. We can only wonder what atrocities the good senator will perpetrate as revenge for this attack on his home. Princess Aisling de Val's system, Semius, has escaped attack this time round, though of course Mackenzie Relay in Semius was one of the first stations to be attacked by the NMLA on the 10th of September last year, and her father, Mad Prince Harold, was one of the early casualties. Notably, Senator Zemina Torval, preposterously wealthy slave owner and chief shareholder in Mastopolis Mining, and who, like Emperor Arissa, did not attend the Galactic Summit, and has so far escaped any sort of attack with the Lagerquist Gateway and William Sargent Vision starports in the system she represents, Sintani, entirely untouched by the NMLA's creative restylings. Torval has never once mentioned the Marlinists or the NMLA. Perhaps they've passed her over as a target.
The Federation's seat of government, Saul, was a key target. Strangely, the NMLA did not attack the most prestigious station, Mars High, but instead attacked one of the three stations orbiting Earth, the not particularly luxurious Orbis station, Li Qingzhao, named after the engineer who invented the hyperdrive. Whether by luck or judgment, the blast from the explosion killed Vice President Brad Mitchell and a number of other senior members of the federal government. Vice President Mitchell's bid to become federal president in the 3309 election is therefore presumably at an end. The other two federal systems attacked were the systems represented by President Hudson and by Shadow President Winters. Hudson and Winters took very different approaches to the Marlinist refugees, with Hudson keen to turn them back at the border and Winters offering them temporary federal citizenship, food and accommodation until they could be rehomed. This pro-Marlinist stance doesn't seem to have done Winters very much good, with Ito Orbital, an Orbis in Winters' constituency Rhea, attacked with the others on Thursday. Hudson's Nanomam system suffered an attack on Han Gateway, yet another Orbis. Shadow Vice President Isolde Rochester's system Altair was untouched, as was that of the late lamented Vice President Mitchell. Ex-President Jasmina Halsey, who attended the Galactic Summit, is of course no longer an elected official within the Federation.
The Alliance suffered two casualties, the two Orbis starports, Donaldson in Alioth, the seat of the government, and Dublin Citadel in Gateway, which is unsurprisingly the system Prime Minister Mahon represents, and also the home of the Alliance Office of Statistics. The objective of this worthy organisation is to use statistics to ensure the safety and prosperity of the Alliance, so you can imagine how worrisome it is that it has had to suspend its operations temporarily. Who is enumerating the Diso Markhorn harvest now? Who will run the Alliance census? Who will conduct opinion polls ahead of the Prime Ministerial election? Prime Minister Mahon, like Federal Shadow President Winters, welcomed Marlinist refugees. It's his rival Nakato Kane, the anti-expansionist darling of liberal thought within the Alliance, who stood up against the Alliance getting involved in the Marlinist crisis. Yet the system she is most strongly identified with, Leasty, escaped attack. Is the NMLA punishing the friends of the Marlinists? Lave Station in Lave is the odd one out. The independent starport that got bombed anyway. And the only Coriolis to come under attack. Li Yongrui, Archon Delane, Yuri Grom and Pranav Antal all escaped attack. There must be something special about Lave. It is traditionally an alliance system. There is still a large alliance presence. The alliance still recognises Lave as an alliance system, even though its supporters there are in a minority. So perhaps that gave the NMLA sufficient reason to attack Lave. Or perhaps the NMLA have a particular grudge against the Lave radio network. A slightly far-fetched theory is that the Lavian distillery was so embarrassed at having run out of stocks of Lavian brandy following the unprecedented demand in the run-up to the Galactic Summit that, rather than admit to this failing, it conducted a massive false flag operation using a Thargoid caustic enzyme bomb to damage Lave Station and thus close the market for Lavian brandy so the shortfall couldn't be seen. And that it similarly bombed 8 high-profile targets throughout the galaxy to throw investigators off the scent. Does that sound far-fetched? If it doesn't, you haven't been keeping up with the Galnet news. However, the use of Thargoid weaponry does seem to point rather heavily towards the NMLA. Only one other organisation has access to such weapons, and that's the Thargoids.
What next for the galaxy? The rescue effort at all 9 starports is well underway, with this special enthusiasm being shown at Federal and Imperial stations, where Commander's superpower reputation can be given a healthy boost when they help out. It's likely that at least some starports will complete the evacuation phase by Thursday, and the process of repairing them can start. But the NMLA is still out there. Theta 7 is no doubt planning further attacks. President Hudson, spurred on by the death of his deputy, seems likely to take the fight to the NMLA. Will he work alongside Senator Petraeus? Will the galaxy become a gigantic bloodbath? Will the Alliance help out in any small way, assuming it can put its ambivalence to one side for a minute? Or will the Emperor come forward with a diplomatic approach? Will Zamina Torval be revealed to be the mastermind behind the NMLA? For that matter, will the Sirius Treaty to bring humanity together to oppose the alleged Thargoid onslaught ever be signed? Will our octagonal galactic companions come back to visit us? Will Aegis be able to find new Guardian technology? How likely is it that the sister ship to the Adamastor, the Hesperus, will ever be found? Is it really less than 2 weeks until we can start to try out walking about on planets? Will we ever get to shake a Thargoid warmly by the pincer and declare galactic unity? The answers to some of these questions may come sooner than we think.
And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News. We read the news so you don't have to.
I could murder a cup of tea. Yorkshire Gold, if you have it. Double Yorkshire Gold. And if you don't have it, you're dead. Lave Radio, broadcasting to every corner of the galaxy.
The Red Planet taxi service have recently moved into the luxury liner market, and their flagship, Big Red Taxi, has been plying the space lanes in Wolf 25 for some weeks now. We join Trace and Chantal in the food prep area on board.
Alright, Chantal, I'll do business class and you do luxury this time, alright, babe? Tea, coffee, coffee, tea, tea, coffee, coffee, tea, tea, coffee. Tea, madam? Certainly, madam. Enjoy your tea, madam. Tea, coffee, coffee, tea.
Oh, could I have an orange juice, please?
Tea, coffee, coffee, tea.
Oh, yes, but I'd like an orange juice if I could, please.
Tea, coffee, coffee, tea.
Oh, okay. Tea then, please.
Tea, sir? Certainly, sir. Enjoy your tea, sir. Tea, coffee, coffee, tea, 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 tea.
Oh, you get all sorts here. Smells like it too. Murph, horrible stains, marigolds.
Which birthday you go?
Donkey Dick.
It says here, next.
My dear man, Cox.
Like an obese child.
No. Teabag.
Fluffy hat.
It's the 34th century.
What the fuck's that?
Patient.
Nada.
Sounds majestic, because it is, Michelle.
This is Beyond Dockers.
Beyond Dockers, a mockumentary podcast available at bs-dockers.com. Also on iTunes.
Store alert!
In the bi-weekly newsletter, here come paint jobs for your art. In the bi-weekly newsletter, here come paint jobs for your art. A store alert, a store alert, a store alert, a store alert, a store alert. Which one will you buy? A store alert, 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 a store alert. Which one will you buy?
Night all.